I know educators kind of fall on both sides of that. Some really want involved administration, some really want distant leadership.
Yes.
Talk about that. How does being involved in actually discipling staff impact
Yeah.
retention, or is there an impact?
Yes, absolutely. Well, I think, I always think of who would I like to go out and have a burger with, when I'm hiring somebody, but I want teachers to feel, that was one of the hardest things when I moved from a teacher to administration was just kids looked at me differently when I came into the
I
lunchroom.
know. Yeah,
You
teachers
know
do
how
too.
that is. Yeah. But I think for teachers too, it should be a thing where they like to be around the leader.
Yeah.
Is the leader likable? So do you go down and spend time with them at the lunch table and laugh and talk and just enjoy them? But I think there has to be pathways for growth, and the leader has to be growing. Um, when I first came to my last school over 30 years ago, I was working on a degree, but the stipends were very low for master's degrees. So we started deciding, hey, we're going to raise that $100 a year. Then we went to where we raised $250 a year. But when I first came, when somebody would get $1,000 for a master's degree, and I was working on an advanced degree, people would think, okay, yeah, I'll do that. But after a while, it would take me how many years to pay for this master's degree? So we are professionals. We do a great job with kids, and I think highlighting staff advancement, or even on Facebook. This teacher led us through this today in professional development and did a great job, but recognizing, I think sometimes some leaders don't allow their staff to get the recognition, they take. Obviously, we're responsible for everything that happens, but we need to give them their time in the sun and appreciation. I think this idea of, so we invest in them, but also I think surveying our staff, and perception is reality, so, and that might be better said, their perception is their reality. So, so many times they assume things that are not true or not correct. We're trying to balance the budget, but one of the things that I did every year, we would have a orientation night for re-enrollment. And I would always tell the parents, 82 cents out of every tuition dollar or 79 cents, whatever it is, goes to staff benefits.
Oh, yeah.
But I want you to understand where our staff, what our starting salary is. Our starting salary is $32,000 with a 4-year degree. But somebody that's been teaching for 20 years with a master's degree, they're making $42,000. And they've got kids that are going to be going into college or have been. That's where we lose our people so often. People they get to junior high and they think, there's no way I'm going to get my kids through college or that they are going to be able to retire someday. So I think we need to build in some benefits. Talked with administrators in a board meeting last week about retirement. If they would say, hey, we'll match up to 2% or 3%, and get something going, but get people used to contributing for themselves. They have to get some money going that way. But so often, what's not happening is people feel like they've just kind of topped out. There's nothing else for them to achieve to, nothing else to go to. So when I would see these young draft picks that were really high draft picks come in, after they'd taught a year or two, I'd say, hey, where do you see yourself in 5 years from now? What would you like to be doing? And then we'd talk about, now, what are some ideas you have where we might improve the school, or what, from your vantage point, what are some things that we need to do here?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's great.
And then I'd ask them about, now, how do you feel about leadership? Are you interested in some areas? And then what I would do is I would take one of their hours of teaching away, and I would give them one period to do a certain task that was defined. But then we could see, hey, do they have initiative? Are they passionate about it? Are they likable? Are they competent? And because so many times teachers get put into leadership just because they're good in their classroom. But
Right.
this way, it's kind of some people, they want to go back to the classroom after that. It's like, whoa, hey, and they have a greater appreciation for administration, become great supporters. Other people grow into it and they become the leaders. But when we talk about improving retention and recruitment, those kind of things, I think we need to make sure that we are appreciating, valuing people, taking time for them.
Enjoyed this short clip? That was just a sneak peek into a full episode on the Teacher Edition podcast. We are passionate about supporting Christian educators like you. Looking for more inspiration and practical strategies you could use today? Subscribe now wherever you get your podcasts. Brought to you by BJU Press.